My name is Caleb Morgan. I'm 39 years old. For nearly a decade, I worked at a company called Ironwell Solutions, a cybersecurity firm based out of Baltimore, Maryland. I wasn't a founder. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't on the company website under Our Story. I was just the guy they called when the roof was on fire. Late night breach? Call Caleb. Client panicking before renewal? Caleb will fly out and fix it. Q3 numbers not looking great. Bring in Caleb to massage the story with facts and salvage investor trust. I never missed a deadline. Never submitted an expense report over budget. And never, not once, turned my phone off. I believed in that company. Or at least I believed in what we said we were trying to do. So when I was called into a meeting on a Tuesday morning with no agenda, I already knew something was wrong. Not because of the calendar invite, but because of the room. It was one of the back conference rooms. No windows, low lighting, no branding on the wall. When a company lets go of a dozen junior staffers, they do it in HR's glass office. When they let go of someone like me, someone who spent 9 years behind the curtain, they do it in silence. The man who fired me didn't know what I did. Leland Fisk, the new senior VP of growth, was already sitting when I walked in. His suit was navy blue, tie, red. The kind of color scheme you choose when you're trying to pretend you have power. He didn't look up as I entered. "Thanks for coming in, Caleb," he said, as if I'd had a choice. He motioned for me to sit, and I did slowly. Then came the paper. "We're restructuring," he said. "Ironwell's evolving into a platform. First model. We're consolidating overlapping functions across retention, engineering advocacy, and client success." I looked at the man. He had joined the company 3 months ago. Didn't know the names of our legacy clients. Didn't know how many government systems still relied on code I had written or reviewed. He didn't even know where I sat. He continued, more gently this time. "This isn't about performance. You've been exceptional. But we're moving in a different direction." There it was. The sentence every loyal employee eventually hears if they stay long enough. "You've been great, but you're not part of the future." No goodbyes, no watch, no speech. There was no announcement. No company-wide email thanking me for my years of service. No handoff plan. I walked out of that windowless room with a white envelope that included a severance package, an NDA, and a thinly veiled clause preventing me from speaking publicly about any data I'd handled. They expected me to disappear quietly, and I might have, if they hadn't made one mistake. They assumed I had nothing left to contribute without them. But what they didn't realize was that they weren't the platform. I was. The things I took with me. I didn't take proprietary code. Didn't clone repositories. Didn't forward internal emails to my personal Gmail. I didn't need to, because what made me dangerous wasn't digital. It was relational. The CTO of Nuvera Tech, who only trusted one voice during his 2021 ransomware breach mine. The 3 CISOs from federal agencies who had my number saved under Morgan Vertical Bar Panic Plan. The quiet 7-figure deal I salvaged in Q2 of last year by simply showing up to a 5 a.m. flight to Frankfurt when no one else would. I didn't steal a thing, but I carried everything that mattered. Because what no restructuring plan could delete was this. Trust lives in memory. And I was the one who showed up. I didn't call anyone. That first night I didn't post on LinkedIn. Didn't blast a mass email saying, "I'm exploring what's next." I simply went home, sat at my kitchen table, and opened a notebook. Inside were 7 years' worth of scribbled notes. Key point. Patterns. Moments I'd cataloged where Ironwell had chosen growth over listening. I wasn't angry. Just clear. They didn't fire a position. They released a strategy. And as I stared at the blank page, one sentence came to mind. They spent 9 years trying to build a product that made clients feel safe. I spent 9 years being the reason they actually were. I didn't make a single call for 3 days. No client updates. No burning bridges. No vindictive tweets. Instead, I did something that would have terrified my past self. I went silent. For the first time in years, my phone didn't vibrate every 12 minutes. There were no Slack notifications, no dashboards blinking red, no 3 a.m. emails marked urgent in all caps. I sat on my porch with a legal pad and just listened. To the quiet. To the ache. To the space that opened up when obligation left the room. The world doesn't miss you right away. It's a strange thing when you've spent years being the fixer, the closer, the fireman of other people's negligence. You start to believe that if you disappear, people will notice immediately. But the truth is, they don't. Not on day one. Because companies don't measure trust in departure notices. They measure it in dashboards. And until those dashboards start to fail, you're just background noise. But clients notice the glitch. On the morning of day 3, my phone finally rang. Not my work phone that was locked and boxed the moment I left Ironwell. This was my personal line. The number I never gave to people unless they earned it. Angela Park, VP of IT Security for Gridspan Energy. We'd been through 4 audits together, 2 minor breaches, 1 whistleblower event. We'd built their risk posture from reactive to resilient. She called me once, the human firewall. I answered immediately. I heard. Her voice was calm. They said you resigned. Of course they did. I didn't, I replied, but I'm not there anymore. Silence. Then, who do I call when the next penetration test flag's red? I don't know. They haven't assigned anyone new yet. Another pause. This one sharper. Let me know where you land. She hung up. The industry starts to whisper. By that evening, I had 4 texts. One from a compliance officer at Virion Defense, asking if I'd be available for a consulting chat. One from a startup CTO asking if I had a minute to gut check a DevSecOps protocol. One from a former colleague at Ironwell. They just rerouted your accounts to Connor. He's panicking. And one, simple and quiet. They messed up. You okay? The industry wasn't shouting. It was murmuring. And murmurs are always the start of a storm. The first offer comes in disguise. On day 4, an email arrived from a generic recruiter address. Subject: Private Opportunity Cybersecurity Advisory Role. The company wasn't named, but the phrasing? Seeking a proven leader in client defense strategy, post-breach recovery, and high-trust verticals. That was me. Exactly me. I did a bit of digging. The recruiter worked indirectly for Fortis One, a private equity firm. The same firm that had recently acquired 3 mid-sized cybersecurity vendors, all of whom were now scrambling to merge client bases, align reporting structures, and retain contracts. They didn't want a consultant. They wanted credibility. And the moment I walked into a room, I brought it with me. But I wasn't ready to be bought. I didn't reply. Not because I wasn't flattered, but because I didn't want to be rented by another machine. I didn't want to plug my soul into someone else's dashboard again. I wanted something built my way. Simple, precise. Not scalable, but deeply repeatable. Something where the client wasn't just a contract. They were a promise. An old note in the notebook. That night, I flipped through my old black notebook. Buried between pages of threat matrix sketches and post-incident reviews, I found a note I'd written to myself 5 years ago. If I ever leave, I won't pitch a platform. I'll build a perimeter and protect what others overlook. I stared at that line for a long time. Then I opened a blank page. At the top, I wrote, Project, Stonewall, a boutique cybersecurity practice. 10 clients. No noisy. No dashboards. Just defense that never sleeps. I didn't need hundreds of customers. I needed the right 10. 10 companies tired of glossy reports. 10 teams who just wanted someone to answer at 2 a.m. and say, we're on it. 10 organizations who still believed that in a world full of alerts and AI, what mattered most was a human being who gave a damn. I hadn't sent my resignation letter. Yet, Ironwell never asked for an exit interview. They assumed I'd vanish. But now, I was considering writing something I never had the guts to say while inside. Not a resignation letter. A warning. Because what was coming next wasn't revenge. It was inevitable. It started with a news alert. Not dramatic. Not front-page material. Just a one-line update buried on a cybersecurity blog. Minor irregularities detected in Edgewave Energy's SCADA protocols no service impact. SCADA. Supervisory control and data acquisition. The digital heartbeat of every modern utility company. To most people, that update meant nothing. To me, it was a flare in a dark field. Edgewave was one of the few mid-market utility firms I'd helped defend back in 2020 during a Russia-linked intrusion attempt. They'd patched their holes, upgraded firewalls, and moved to endpoint monitoring. But I knew something their PR didn't say. Edgewave never hardened their internal lateral movement defenses. If someone got past the outer layer, the wall, they could dance around undetected for weeks. This was that moment. I didn't wait for a call. Most consultants wait to be hired. I made a different choice. I wrote a short, encrypted email to Dominic Fahey, Edgewave's VP of Infrastructure. Subject: Read this before the wrong person reads your network. Body: Dom, saw the SCADA post. You're being probed from the inside. The compromise isn't in the breach logs. It's in the maintenance token you recycled last quarter. You have 72 hours before diagnostics go haywire. Let me know if you want a second pair of eyes. No pitch, just protection. See. I hit send and walked away from my desk. It was a risk. He might ignore it. He might forward it to Ironwell if he even knew I'd left. But I wasn't chasing sales. I was offering what every breach victim begs for after the fact. A whisper before the fire. The call back. 1 hour later, my phone buzzed. Dominic F. Mobile. I answered with nothing but a quiet. Yeah. Jesus, Caleb, he exhaled. How did you see that? I used to walk your walls, remember? He was quiet for a moment. Then, we lost signal on a diagnostic node this morning. We didn't tell anyone yet. That token theory, it fits. I know. You're already exposed. It hasn't detonated yet, but it will. Where are you now? Still with Ironwell? I paused. Then, for the first time, said it out loud. Number I left. Quietly. Starting something new. Dom didn't hesitate to. Send me a quote and a mutual NDA. We're not waiting for someone else to screw this up. Just like that, I had my first client. No pitch deck. No logo. Just one truth delivered fast enough to make a difference. Stonewall was live. That night, I registered the domain. stonewallsec.com. I bought the cheapest hosting plan, wrote 3 lines of placeholder text, and sent the invoice to Edgewave using an LLC I'd created a year ago, but never touched. The logo was just black text on white. No mission statement, no fluff. Just Stonewall Security. When silence isn't an option. Ironwell notices. Eventually, 2 days later, a former colleague messaged me. Hey, your name came up on a call. Edgewave pushed back on Ironwell's retainer offer, said they already had real protection. Then, you really walked out and built a shield overnight? Not overnight. 9 years in the making. They just hadn't noticed until it stopped working without me. Result, not noise. Within 48 hours, I confirmed the breach vector. A maintenance worker's laptop had cached elevated credentials during a remote patch in Oklahoma. The attacker had slipped in weeks ago and had been mapping Edgewave's architecture since. We purged the entry point, rebuilt the credential tree, rotated all tokens, and air-gapped the sensitive functions. And we did it before a single file was stolen. Dom's message afterward was simple. Whatever you're building, keep going. The industry needs it. The first rule of Stonewall. That night, I opened my notebook and wrote the first rule of the business I hadn't meant to start. Rule number 1. Don't wait for the fire alarm. Knock on the door and say you smell smoke. Because in my world, the ones who whisper early are the ones who never have to scream. 3 weeks after Edgewave, the murmurs turned into a pulse. Not loud, not viral, but steady like the tap-tap of a far-off Morse code, spelling out the same message over and over. Someone's finally doing it different. I hadn't hired sales. I hadn't posted a single update on LinkedIn. But the cybersecurity world is small. A paranoid neighborhood where everyone knows someone who's already been breached. And Stonewall? We weren't offering hope. We were offering a history of being right when it mattered most. That's how the email from Max Rylan, CEO of Vantrosis, landed in my inbox. Subject line, advisory request. Heard your name from Fahey. Fahey, as in Dominic, Edgewave's VP. I opened the message expecting a formal inquiry. Instead, it was 5 words. Call me before Friday, Max. No intro, no signature, no company disclaimer. I called. The call that should have gone better. Max picked up on the second ring. Caleb, appreciate you getting back. Sure. What's going on? We're going public next quarter, he said quickly, like it was something he needed to unload. There's some noise in our logs, low-level scan patterns. Our current vendor says it's normal. I don't believe them. I listened, silent. It continued. We've got one environment that keeps getting flagged during internal review, but the alerts vanish before the security dashboard fully loads. Could be nothing. Could be a test probe. I already knew what it was. Shadow indexing. A technique used by sophisticated attackers to run probes that auto-delete when detection systems initiate a scan like a burglar, erasing their footprints as they walk. You've got a recursive ghost scanner running against your dev environment, I told him. It's not trying to breach anything yet. It's testing your visibility, mapping your reflex time. Silence. Jesus, how sure are you? 80% based on your description. If I saw logs, I could confirm in an hour. He exhaled. Okay. What's your rate? I named a number fair, but not cheap. He paused. Then, I'll have to run this by our board liaison. We're under tight optics right now. I nodded to myself. I knew that tone. He wasn't going to move. The corporate shrug. 2 days passed. New call. No logs. No retainer. Then came the email. From Max's assistant, terse and cold. Thank you for your time. Vantrosys will proceed with our existing vendor and internal tooling. No mention of the specific risk. No request for further review. Just a clean no. I closed the email, sighed once, and moved on. Stonewall wasn't built to beg for clients. We existed for those who knew silence didn't mean safety. 3 weeks later. It started with Twitter. A tweet from a tech journalist. Breaking. Vantrosys suffers partial data center outage, dev environments offline. Public filing imminent. Then came the industry boards. Screenshots. Employee leaks. Speculation. I made no comment, but I didn't need to. Because by the following Monday, a leaked internal memo confirmed it. Unauthorized access to privileged sandbox environments. Credential chain misused. No breach declared, but rollback in progress. In short, they got burned exactly where I warned them. And the best part? I hadn't said a word, but others had. Reputation moves faster than breach reports. On Tuesday, I received an encrypted message from someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Emma Treadwell, former CISO at one of Vantrosys' key data partners. Just heard about the ghost scanner. You still working solo? I replied, not for long. That night, I opened my notebook again. And beneath rule number 1, I added a second. Rule number 2. Never sell certainty to the uncertain. Walk away. They'll come back, or they'll crash. Either way, you win. The follow-up call. 1 week later, my phone rang again. It was Max. This time, the confidence was gone. We were wrong, he admitted. I was wrong. I didn't gloat. Didn't remind him that I'd handed him the flashlight, and he chose to sit in the dark. He asked if I could come in, help rebuild, assess the real damage. We can pay your rate now. But I didn't say yes. Because something had shifted. Stonewall wasn't about recovery. It was about readiness. And Vantrosys? They had chosen their moment and missed it. I'm booked solid, I said, but I can refer you to someone I trust. You won't get me, but you'll get the mindset. He sounded defeated. Understood. We don't rescue. We prepare. That night, I wrote Stonewall's first public manifesto. A 1-page PDF. Plain, stark, unbranded. It read, "The fire is never the beginning. It's the silence before it that kills. We don't show up after. We show up when everyone else is saying, it's probably nothing. If you need comfort, hire the brand. If you want truth before it hurts, we'll be here." I hit publish and closed the tab. We weren't chasing growth. We were building a quiet wall. One breach warning at a time. It started with a spreadsheet. Not one I created. One a client forwarded to me, accidentally copied on an internal message from Ironwell Solutions. A list of retention risk accounts. 13 names. I recognized 10 of them as former contacts I'd worked with personally before the restructure, before the blinds-drawn termination meeting. Next to each name, color-coded priority tags, risk scores, and under primary threat, a 3-letter word typed in red. Caleb. My name. Shortened, sterile, stripped of identity like I was malware instead of memory. They'd declared a war one never asked for. I hadn't run ads, hadn't posted shade online, hadn't poached a single client directly. But trust moves like water. Once cracked, it doesn't need to be pulled, it just flows. Ironwell knew that now. They weren't losing contracts yet, but they were losing certainty. And for firms built on compliance and reassurance, that was worse. Clients weren't asking. They were moving. In the weeks after Vantrosys' breach, the trickle became a stream. A boutique investment firm based in Manhattan who I'd helped through a crypto wallet exploit in 2019 moved their monitoring to me. A medical data startup out of Houston who'd never had a major breach, but always trusted my checklists over flashy dashboards asked for a retainer. And then came RansomX, a company specializing in anti-extortion tech. Their head of ops called one morning and said, "I heard you're not the polite guy from Ironwell anymore. That true?" I laughed. I was never polite. I was professional. "Even better," he said. "We're tired of politeness. We need someone who sees the hit before it lands." The unofficial tally. By mid-month, Stonewall had 7 active clients, fear, under review, and 3 companies asking for emergency audits after their internal tools gave them the all clear, but they still didn't sleep well. I hadn't scaled. but I had built a perimeter. Each client brought not just revenue, but referrals, credibility, and in many cases, intel. The industry trusted me not because I promised they'd never be breached, but because I always told them the truth, even when it was ugly. Ironwell's counterstrike. They responded exactly how I predicted. Not with clarity, with noise. Articles seeded through their PR firm, promoting AI-led cyber trust. Webinars hosted by consultants who never responded to PagerDuty alerts at 3 a.m. And finally, an industry blog post titled, "Don't Trust the Myth of the Solo Expert." I didn't need to be named. Everyone knew who they meant. And the clients I'd once worked with? They didn't forward the article. They forwarded their contracts. Let us know what the transition would look like. Old friends start whispering. I got a message on Signal from a name I hadn't seen since the Ironwell days. Jules Romano, my former director of threat operations. "This place is cracking," she wrote. "Fisk is blaming marketing. Ellen's panicking about the board." Then she added, "Are you building something?" I paused, then typed, "Not building, just protecting what they forgot mattered. If you ever need muscle, I'm done pretending we're the good guys." That was the second message like that in a week. Turns out I wasn't the only one who didn't want to be a cog anymore. Stonewall 2.0. I finally did what I'd put off since day one. I bought a bigger hosting plan, had a logo designed, registered the name as a formal S-Corp, and under our website header I added, "We're not a solution. We're the response before the report." 24/7. Fully human, no excuses. That same day, I hired one person. Not an SDR, not a marketing lead. I hired Julia Kramer, a breach response specialist who once told me over coffee, "I don't panic when it burns. I just want to know who lit the match." They lost me quietly. Now they're watching loudly. The week ended with a call I didn't answer. Ironwell's executive assistant. Her voicemail was polite. "Leland was wondering if you'd be open to a conversation. Nothing urgent, just to reconnect." I deleted the message. Because here's what they still didn't get. You don't get to reclaim trust like it's a parking spot. You either protect it while it's yours, or you watch it walk away forever. It wasn't written in rage. There were no expletives, no passive-aggressive jabs, no attachment of Stonewall's recent client wins. It was one page, 12 sentences, and it began with the line, "This is the resignation letter I never had the chance to submit." I didn't write it for Leland Fisk. I didn't write it for Ellen Raines or the Ironwell board. I wrote it for myself. Because you can only carry the ghost of a company so far before it starts to haunt you. The final tally. 9 months after the day I was restructured, Stonewall Security had 12 full retainer clients, a waiting list of 5, 0 unpaid invoices, and a team of 6 each hand-picked, all veterans of the breach war, none interested in buzzwords. We weren't growing fast. We were growing deliberately. And our results? 4 detected breaches pre-activation, 3 saved audits, 1 federal agency referral, no ads, no expos, just a small fire team that showed up when no one else could see the smoke. The offer that didn't matter. 3 weeks ago, Verdant Capital, a mid-size investment firm, sent a term sheet, $4.2 million for majority stake, 2-year lock-in, retention bonuses, a full acquisition of Stonewall, with one condition. I step away within 24 months. I read the sheet in silence, then called their partner back. "I didn't start this to sell it," I told him. "But you could retire," he said, confused. "I didn't leave a system just to rebuild another one," I replied. I declined. Not because I didn't want the money, but because you can't sell something you were born to protect. The email that broke the pattern. Then, last Monday, it came. From Everett Cho, CEO of Ironwell Solutions. Subject, "Caleb, I owe you coffee, or at least the truth." I read it twice. Inside was a 3-paragraph confession. That the restructuring was a condition for a failed acquisition. That I had been removed, not for performance, but for being irreplaceable in a model meant to standardize. That, in hindsight, they'd lost not just revenue, but the nerve of their system. And at the end, "If you ever want to consult or even advise, our door is open." I didn't reply, but I attached the letter. The one I never sent. The one I had finally written. My letter. Excerpt. To the leaders who believed they were betting on the future, you mistook trust for inconvenience. You replaced relationship with system, instinct with dashboards, and decided that trust was transferable by memo. I was never your asset. I was your promise. And when you broke that, I didn't leave the industry. I just made it a little safer one perimeter at a time. You don't have to respond. I already did. And then, quiet. There was no reply from Everett. No rebuttal. No second offer. And that was the best possible ending. Because the most powerful message you can send isn't, I'm back. It's, I never needed to return. What came next? 6 months later, Stonewall launched an internal program. Op 99, short for Operator 99th Percentile, a mentorship pipeline for veteran cyber experts pushed out by bloat, politics, or age. We trained them, gave them real clients, let them do what they were hired to do but better. The first 3 hires? All ex-Ironwell. None of them angry. All of them free. The very last alert. On the anniversary of the day I was fired, I got a text from Angela Park at Gridspan. Hey, remember when they let you go for being too expensive? We just renewed at 3x your Ironwell rate. Worth every dollar. I smiled, then silenced my phone. Not because I didn't care, but because it was Friday night, and for the first time in 10 years, I wasn't on call.